give me water. I'm like, oh God, my first fire. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I go to get a mask. The captain goes, drop it. So I dropped the mask and I burped smoke for 2 days. My head was killing me. This wasn't in the brochure.
We wanted to know how professionals have changed over time, so we got 3 different experts from multiple decades to share their experiences.
We didn't have power saws, we didn't have the jaws of life, we didn't have any types of meters. In my day, we only had 2 SCBAs, and we had a couple we call MSA masks, which were a filter type mask. Generally, we didn't put them on, we kept them in boxes.
The guys in the back, when we got on, you stretched the line off the back and went as far as you can go without a mask. The 2 guys inside had SCBAs, the old Scots. They weighed a ton, they were heavy straps, they had the bug eye mask. It was really weird stuff, but you could breathe, so it was advantageous. So a basic piece of equipment that be carried by a truck guy, sometimes an engine guy, is a 6-pound axe. Our axes, when we cut roofs, for example, are not sharp. They're not, you can't shave with them. Because if you had a sharp axe and you drove it into the roof, you could get stuck. You go too deep. So they're kind of dull. More of a smashing tool than a cutting tool. And you can use both sides. Obviously the back, you can see it's been some damage on it. This, combined with this tool, created by a New York City chief named Halligan, back about 100 years ago, is probably the best tool on the planet. Construction guys steal it from us. They want them because they do multiple things. You have a fork end, which has 2 sides, a concave and a bevel side, right? And you put this in the door, between the door and the door jamb. You will take your axe. It's a 2-man operation, but 1 person can do it. And you hit it to drive it in and split the door between. We don't take the locks, we go to the weak link, and that's where the door and the jamb meet. We try and split it. Just for us to force doors. We can pull ceilings with it, break open walls. It's a multiple use tool.
It's seen a little bit. There used to be a padded piece that's around here. That's pretty much gone. On the back is, when people are looking at you from the back, you see the company picture there. You really can't see it because you'd have to dig through, but in the very top of this is a picture of all 3 of my girls. So every time I put my helmet on, they were with me.
These helmets were leather. When we came into the job, you were fitted. It looked like a top hat. They put it on your head. There were a lot of pins in there. The helmet was made custom. They didn't want us to be wearing chin straps, that if we ever got stuck someplace with the helmet, we'd end up getting choked. So the helmet had to fit and stay on. And when we did an annual inspection, you had to put your helmet on, bend your head over, and shake your head, and the helmet had to stay on your head.
That's my dad's. That comes back from the 50s. And I bought 4 just because it's fun. So it's my dad's helmet. It was made to your head. They put like a slinky on it. And it's made to your individual head, so it wouldn't fit you properly or me properly. It would fit him properly. You could wear it if you really had to. The insert here from 157 when I worked in Brooklyn, the 18 engine, this is my original front piece, and it has your badge number underneath. You can't really see it, but your badge number was in there, so you knew who they were. Now, when you're a probie, you get an orange patch with a white thing, and then they put like whatever company you were in, a temporary, or they give you magic marker. The orange would tell chiefs and other guys, this guy's new, doesn't know a lot.
The yellow, that's reflective. So when, somebody's hit the flashlight or whatever, and all these stickers are actually reflective.
Like years ago, if a firefighter was in trouble, we didn't have radios. When I came on, only a couple of radios, and years before that, nobody had radios.
The radios evolved today to the point of a firefighter has a problem, he has a button that he can press.
Every position having a radio is a great thing, and it sucks. If you've ever been at a party where the DJ gets a little too close with his mic to the speakers, you get that amazingly loud and piercing feedback. That follows suit for everybody having a radio. So you learn very quickly that whenever anybody around you is transmitting, you slap yourself in the chest because that's where the mic is. So wherever you hang your mic, whether it's here or down here or over here, you would automatically reach for your mic and cover it, because otherwise you're the idiot that is creating the feedback, and now nobody hears anything, and they're all looking at you like, idiot, what the hell are you doing? Since I left, some of the microphones I believe all the microphones that the job has now are noise canceling, so where you can't do feedback. 3 rows has a thorn, because God forbid in my day, if I went down and they were trying to find me and they didn't know where I was, if somebody was keying the mic, you would get feedback off of my mic because I'm not covering it. So there's a tool that we would use feedback. When you have noise canceling mics, you lose that feedback assistance.
Oh, this is going back into the late 1960s probably. This is what we would call a tractor trailer area ladder, completely unenclosed cab. So you're driving in a pouring rain, you're in the freezing cold, and the guys are hanging onto the side. Generally, the ladder is 100 foot. They were spring operated, so when you lowered the ladder, you like wound the spring. When you wanted to raise the ladder, it was a lock. You kicked it off, and a spring raised the ladder. And then you locked it at whatever angle you wanted to. The fly ladder was so heavy we couldn't extend it. They had to put on an auxiliary hydraulic. We kept them in service till 1970.
They're a Bronx Rescue. Okay, so that's a 79 rig. It was the third one made in 79. The number here says 7903. So that would be the year, and then what number rig it was. So, and they didn't make many rescue trucks. We had, at the time, 4, now we have 5. Staten Island Rescue came on in the 90s after the first World Trade Center attack. That's when the squads came about, so more hazmat companies. We only had one hazmat unit, which came in around 1982. People were like, you have one hazmat for 8 million people? Thing is money driven. Okay, so this would have came out this is in Staten Island, is where Engine 160 is. TAC 2 is the Tactical Support Operations. So Special Operations Command, or SOC, they would carry a boat, extra equipment for special operations. But anything with Special Operations Command is a SOC unit, so they're TAC 2. There's a couple of TACs throughout the city. And they are trained. All the guys in SOC are specially trained. And there's always sometimes that animosity. Those guys are the same as us. And I'm like, well, yeah, they are the same as us, and they admit it. But they have specialized training, and if I'm at a fire, I want them there. If something goes bad, I want as best trained guys as possible on scene if I'm in trouble. I got no problem with that.
That's a Ferrara. I think they got the contract somewhere around 2008, 2010. That's your rear mount 100-foot stick. They are quick, pretty agile for their size. They got a pretty decent amount of room in the back. These trucks are predominantly used if somebody's hanging out a window or whatever, you can shoot it up to them, but also, more importantly, to get the roof guy to the roof. Nothing ventilates these buildings that are not just 1 or 2 stories better than opening the roof, and that's the roof guy's job. And that's why opening the roof and allowing that heat, because heat rises, so their job is imperative. There's nothing shall deter a roof man from getting the roof. The last 4 feet of the stick, or that orange part up there, it's that bright, nasty, violent color because you can't see through smoke. And everything you see in Chicago Fire and everything you see in movies is crap. So here, the roof guys are making their way up to the roof. The chauffeurs did a great job. They didn't rest the ladder on the edge of the roof because if you side load it and you're not totally square, then you can weaken it. But they have a job to do.
When I came on the job, we had a ride on the running board here.
The reason the back changed was for safety. They didn't want the guys inside. They didn't want guys riding on the back. So you can see it's enclosed here. And during the 70s, people were throwing rocks, bottles, shooting at them, doing whatever. They were trying to get the guys inside. But we did that till about 81, and then they said, okay, no more backstep. You have to be inside.
This is our super pumper, and it could pump 8,000 gallons a minute. And eventually they did away with it, and they replaced it what we call now the Maxi water system.
You see a multiversal or a Stang, it used to be called. Some of them used to be connected by a hose. Some nowadays they have an internal piping system. So every engine carries about 500 gallons of water. So we have 500 gallons of water, which out of our hose lines is about 2.5 minutes of water out of an 1 3/4 inch, which is a smaller line. But for rubbish fires, car fires, we may hook up to a hydrant, and you'll see the hard suction here on the left side with the chauffeur side. That's to hook up to a hydrant, so the hose won't collapse. It's hard. It stays round all the time. Gives you better water flow, less kinking, less chances of problems. You would attach that to either the front of the rig between the 1 and 8. That's a connection right above the eagle.
Okay, we're basically looking at a pump panel of a pumper. A lot of times I'll visit a fire department and say, you got to see our new pumper. Apparatus doesn't turn me on. My general response is, does it have a gazinter and a gazouter? Huh? What's that? You know, the water goes in here and comes out here. Oh, yeah, we got that. That's all I care about. And what impresses me, you know where to take the hose line. That impresses me more than this.
This is a PR truck. There's no 71 truck in FDNY.
When I came on the fire department, we were primitive. We were still doing things the way we did it in the 1750s. We didn't have overtime. We didn't have minimum staffing. All that was in the 1960s. And that came over into the 1970s. We call them the war years. It went from the late 60s to 1982, where the public was against us. The city made a sudden stop to a lot of it by increasing the fire marshals and putting a conscientious effort into stopping the arson fires. But our apparatus in those days weren't even covered. We're riding out in the open in the rain, the snow, the heat, the cold. And so that's how we operated until they started throwing bricks and rocks at us. And they said, hey, we better cover the rigs. So that's when we started getting covered apparatus in the 1970s.
Oh, they loved us. The public always loves us because when we show up, unlike a police officer at certain times, if you're in trouble, you want a cop. If you're speeding or you run a red light, you don't want a cop. We're always there to help. We had a guy one time, we had a job, like I said, on the east side, and he was shooting up, and it was a mattress fire. It wasn't much. We were putting out, and he's sitting in the hallway shooting up. He goes, oh, you guys aren't going to arrest me. I said, we're not the police, but they're coming. Maybe you should get out of here. Like that was our thought. Like, we're not going to hurt you. We're just here to help.
Especially post 9/11, the perception of FDNY is just, the creme de la creme. It is the department to be in. It's the biggest fire department in the United States. And frankly, in my opinion, it's the best.
Well, the probie is a firefighter that just comes in the fire department, and they're called a probie because for their first year they're technically on probation. That if they don't work out according to the department's needs, they could be let go, fired, laid off, whatever you want to call it, with a lot less of a problem than if you sort of pass your probationary period and what you might call tenure. And the toughest thing for probie school for everybody wasn't the physical thing, it was the bells. Everything was the telegraph signals in those days. Everything was by bells.
Understand that everybody that was a firefighter cleaned toilets, made beds, got in the sink after dinner and cleaned every pot twice. And that's what you did. And that's part of paying your dues. No one's exempt from it, and no one's above it.
When you're a probie, you're just perpetual motions. You're not allowed to sit. There's cleaning. There's the rig needs tending to. If there was a fire in a previous tour or whatever, and some blade needs to get put back on the rig, or rope needs to be repacked, or whatever the case may be, you take care of those things, along with building inspection, the meal, cleaning up from that. Pretty much every firehouse.
There's these dress uniforms, there's the dress hat. Now, we wore dress hats to fires. That was always something that bugged me. And our firefighter hat that had the badge, which was an official thing. We didn't even have ID cards. The badge was your official everything. When I first came on the job, they gave us a uniform allowance. I think it was $900 a year. We had to buy everything. You had to go to a tailor who made the uniform, the dress uniform. Over the years, they kept changing it. A lot of times, I couldn't even tell you what the official uniform was every time they changed it, they couldn't supply it. So half the guys had it, half the guys didn't. Then you had to buy your bunker coat. It really wasn't called bunker gear in those days. This is a rubberized coat, and we had the pull-up boots. The actual work clothing was basically dungarees and a chambray shirt. Nothing, tested to be fire resistant or anything like that.
Well, it's made of a Nomex type of material. It's not fire retardant to the sense. It will burn, but it can last, like the bunker gear, in a flashover, up to about 25 to 30 seconds before it ignites. So it buys us time, is what the whole point of it was. And unfortunately for us, because of the way we think, our mentality is we can now go further because we're protected. We would go further and be in a more dangerous situation, combined with the mask and a hood. That would give us, we could breathe, which is always the biggest problem. So burn injuries really didn't decrease. They sort of stayed the same, which was confusing to the administration. Like, wait, we have spent all this money on bunker gear. So, well, because we're going further in, and when things go bad, we still make our way back out, and we're still getting burn injuries. So these things, they can last, and there's a vapor barrier between the outer coat and the rubber coat. So the vapor barrier is what keeps the heat off you. But over time, like a sponge, it does absorb, and you'll start to feel the heat. So when you start to feel heat through your bunker gear, the thing is, it's time to back out. And the other side is if you bent your arm, like a nozzleman would bend his arm to control the nozzle and kneel. Well, whenever you bend it, you crimp off that airflow. You can't fight a fire like straight. It's just a natural occurrence.
Normal standard job patch. The K up here, that's because I was deployed in the first group to assist in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. The lapel pin is in memory of Chris Lutman, who I was in probie school with. And he's a Marine, a staff sergeant in the Marines, and he was deployed in the desert. And about a week prior to him returning, an IED ended his life. So the most important thing on my coat right there is that pin.
We're part of a team. Each firefighter has an assignment, and it's sort of like a football team. A halfback, this, that, the quarterback, center. They all have a specific job to do. You know when one of those people on that team is not doing their job properly. We have to do what's called committee work, clean the firehouse, clean the kitchen, clean the bathrooms, obviously the apparatus, check all our tools and equipment, check the masks, check the radios, make sure everything's charged. And then the big thing comes up, what's for lunch or what's for dinner? It's a whole team operation. We practice that way, but we don't make a big deal about it. It's not something we sit and talk about all the time. We talk about everything else under the sun, but not that.
Tradition is huge. The way your house is run. Like, as an officer, when I was an officer, when a new guy came, we gave him a little bit of a spiel. The captain gave me a spiel. I gave him my spiel. I said, you have a problem, you go to union delegate first. You bring it to the firefighters first. You don't want the bosses knowing about it, which is a tradition. You don't bring it, let's not get this, make a problem out of it. If it can be solved simply, fine. And that part of it, how the house is run. The senior guys kind of run the house, even though the officers are in charge. There's a little bit of separation of church and state. Like, I've walked into the kitchen to get a cup of coffee over the years. Like, hey, what's going on, guys? You don't want to know. I raise my hand, turn around, and walk out. I don't want to know. Cooking, meals are important. Some houses have great chefs and great cooks, and guys have written books about it.
This looks like a typical Brooklyn firehouse where the gentlemen are always in their gear because they're so busy that they don't have time to get out of their gear. They're also hanging out and they're talking. They could be talking about what they're going to eat. They could be talking about a fire. They could be talking about buying a car. Who knows? But there's a lot of fire departments across the world. They call it a fire hall or a fire station. And they ask us why we call it a firehouse. And it's called a firehouse because we live with these guys. We eat with these guys. We cry with these guys. We laugh with these guys. So it's a home away from home. And we involve our family whenever we can at the family picnic or the Christmas party. And so we kind of blend everybody's true family with the firehouse family.
It was all telegraph alarm systems, and it was still the major way of transmitting alarms when I came in 1963. And that later progressed to a voice alarm system, which was like an intercom system between the dispatchers. The alarms didn't come directly into the firehouses. They went into a fire alarm communications office. The dispatchers would retransmit that box number over the alarm circuits to the firehouses. And the firehouses, when the alarm came in, would check if they were assigned to that box. And if they were, they would respond.
When I got on a job, we got bells a couple of nights a week. So you had a piece of chalk and a chalkboard, and you have to count the bells. Boxes in Greenwich Village were all 5s and 3s. So you'd write 5 down, 4, 3. Then they would repeat it, 5, 4, 3. We'd hit a bell in chorus to tell everyone, but everyone can hear the bells through the fire, so they know that we're probably going. So they're starting to slide the poles or come down or come over. The problem with the 5 and 300s, when they would send a single engine anywhere in Manhattan, they start off with single engine by himself was 5 bells, is a signal 5. So if you heard 5 bells, you had to write at 2 in the morning, but then you had to count all the rest, and if you went to a 4th number, it wasn't you, and you just erase it. But you're supposed to be awake, And 3s were a class 3 alarm. There was automatic alarms in buildings. Like this building here is a class 3 box. Most high-rises have it. It would start off with 3 bells, then the box number. So you had to do 3, because it was a 300, maybe it's us, and it was like you were writing stuff down sometimes all night long for nothing. Well, one time my hand fell asleep. I was sitting down, my hand fell, I couldn't grab the chalk. I'm trying to grab the chalk like this. I'm trying to write the number on it. And they went to a teleprinter system back in the 80s, and we had to figure out how to make a system work that if we were upstairs doing something, so we would attach a bell to it with a string. So when the paper came out, it would release the string and ring a bell upstairs that we knew if we were doing something. And then, nowadays it's all computerized.
Every firehouse and apparatus has a computer in it that will let you know when you're getting a run. There's someone sitting in the house watch where the computer is, where the run comes in, and they would look and they'd be like, oh, EMS run for 46, and they'd hit the bell once. And then if it was, a water leak or whatever for the truck or a stuck elevator, it was 2 bells. But if everybody was going, 3, and then once those bells, then you knew you were get your gear on, get on the rig, do what you need to do. The house watchman also has to acknowledge the run. You would just hit, whatever company you are, 10-4, and you'd hit send. And then that was the complete communication between the firehouse and the borough dispatch. And then now it's going to populate that we're moving because there's AVLs, automatic vehicle locators, as you're going down the road.
The police come on the scene and they do what they think they should do. They don't have an officer that comes to our command post and stays with us. Our command post will have people from EMS, we'll have people from the telephone company, we'll have people from Con Edison, we'll have people from the gas company, we'll have people from the water supply, but you won't have a police representative there. If I'm the incident commander and the police have the streets closed, next thing I turn around, they're gone, the cars are riding over our hose. Now, we respond to a lot of police incidents. I mean, we would never, ever think of not going over to the police command post and saying, we're on the scene, we're here, what do you want us to do? And we would never, ever leave the scene without consulting with them. The police department, they just come and go, do what they want, and that's it.
For the most part, the guys were great. At one time, I believe it was Chief Bratton was the commissioner back then, and he was having the ESU guys come into boxes and kind of cut us off and show that they could do more. It was a little battle of the badges, they called it, but it mostly came from the upper echelons. Wasn't the guys on the ground as much, so that kind of caused us some problems at times. But for the most part, we never had an issue with them. In fact, when we have a fire, we want police there. We need them.
The beat cops are phenomenal. They're just, I mean, you kind of feel bad for them as well. You know, they come into the firehouse, we have coffee with them or whatever. A lot of the firehouses are in a proximity. When I was in the Cross Bronx, it's connected to the Bronx Borough, the 4A precinct, and our firehouse. The only thing we didn't like is that the borough controlled our heat. So it got pretty cold in the winter because they would shut it off on the weekend. So I don't know if they were breaking our chops, because maybe when we were making steaks for lunch, the exhaust fan that was getting rid of our smoke from the grill inside the kitchen went right into their windows. So we may have brought a little bit about that ourselves, but
I thought it was the greatest job in the world. If they didn't kick me out at 65, I'd still be working.
If they called me now, I would leave, say thank you very much, I'd be out the door and go back to work in a heartbeat. I miss it every day.
it was my privilege to be a part of the career that I did. I mean, certainly I enjoyed being paid, but I wouldn't necessarily go say I would pay to do this, but it was such an unbelievable experience and rewarding on, I just can't tell you on how many different levels.
There was a lot of satisfaction. When you came back after a job and, you sat in the kitchen and discussed about how things went, things like that, there was a feeling of pride, that accomplishment. We did something, and important, maybe to the point that actually physically saving lives.
I think the best way I've heard it, someone else say, most people leave their careers, thank God I'm retired, thank God I'm gone. I said, if I could have one more day, I'd give almost anything. I'd give one more 24. Nothing I wouldn't give to go one more 24 at work.